Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson of World Alternative Media here, and we are joined by Tim Picciott over at the Liberty Advisor. Well, he is the Liberty Advisor. The libertyadvisor.com is in the description. I mean, we have a lot to go into today, 2026, my friends. And, a lot of the time in the past, we'd be very hopeful. Well, maybe next year will be a little bit better. Let's be honest. Things are going to be crazy in 2026. It's all about what we do with that information and how we deal with that in our own lives, of course. But there is no doubt a lot that's going to be happening. And we always do a prediction video. I think, 7 or 8 of them we've done in a row with Tim. And I think it's important that we kind of delve into what could be happening in the year 2026, what we should be looking out for, and what we can do about it, of course. So, unfortunately, we have a really good record with these prediction videos. Going back, it's like before we started recording, I was talking to Tim about how, if you look back at the prediction video from like 2019, how tame it is compared to now. And everyone would back then say, oh, well, you're being such a doom and gloomer. It's what you're saying is such a crazy, it's conspiracy theory nonsense. And now it's like nothing. And it's just part of the normal lexicon of everyday life, what we predicted back then. So we have to dig into what's happening and what we believe what's going to happen this year based on just, all the research that we've been doing for all these years. Of course, Tim is over at thelibertyadvisor.com. You can find that in the description of the video. He hasn't taken on new clients in like 2 years, my friends. And he is now opening the door for those of you that watch at World Alternative Media, $250,000 and up for those of you that want to join him and get a free consultation with him. I urge you to go and check that link in the description. Let him know that you found him at Wham, of course. But I think this is a really good opportunity because those of you that got on board with Tim as an advisor years and years ago are doing a hell of a lot better today. And those that missed out, well, I'm sorry for that, but you have an opportunity now. We're going to get into the predictions right away. But Tim, how are you doing? How's everything going over there in the USS of A?
Well, I can't really say for the USS of A, but I'm not a U.S. citizen anymore. So even though I'm a citizen of the United States of America, so things are going good for me. And like you mentioned, I hadn't taken on new clients in 2 years because our top holdings were Bitcoin, gold, and silver. And so, our incomes dramatically went up over here at the business just because and even this year. So even this year, because even though Bitcoin was, relatively flat or was down a tiny bit, that the gold and silver went up so much and, past performance in case of future returns, in case the SEC is watching this. But yeah, I mean, there's nobody, it's going really well over here for all of our clients. And another thing too is, and I didn't even tell you this, and we should be on like CNBC and all these other places of like, you take a look at like the returns that we're getting versus, and I'd say like yourself too, and things that you've been, mentioning to, your viewers for years and years and years. But every other week I don't really do podcasts anymore. And your show is the only one I did in the past year. But on October 8th, I did a webinar for my clients. And I said, and like Bitcoin was like 125,000. Like, listen, guys, this is on video. I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't go down to 80,000 from here. But, and so if you need money, you've got, something big coming up, or your daughter's getting married, or you need money for a house, or you've got some big thing to pay off, I would free up that capital right now. But, and if you want to maybe take 25% off the table, then at these increments, you can get back in. Or, if it's for long-term legacy, just know that you ride it out, maybe free up some cash and buy it on the way down. So, I mean, I nailed it to a T, literally like the day or two before the all-time high on video. And so, so we're sleeping really well over here, knowing that, we have a pretty good idea of how this whole great reset is going to play out. And so several years ago, I created the Your Great Reset Retirement Blueprint, and I actually yesterday just updated it for the Anarchapulco's audience. So I was just speaking at the Nonconformist series. I'm excited to be down there again this year at their actual event, which I'll be speaking at the Dollar Vigilante Summit. So I imagine you've got a promo code for people
Yeah,
to
that
go
would
down there.
be
So
WAM, and you could save 10% on your tickets for Anarchapulco. And of course, I'll be speaking there as well. Jeff Berwick's going to be speaking there. David Icke and Gareth Icke. Greg Reese. It's going to be amazing. There's a lot of great people. Charlie Robinson, our good friend. So, definitely a good thing for people to check out in the description below. And Tim, we're going to get into a bunch of this stuff and all of what you just said about, just talking about these things years ago and how they came to fruition and how good your business is going on your end there. It's just another example of why we need to make these prediction videos and looking forward and giving people like a zoomed out outlook, an insight into what is, I believe, going to happen next. We're going to get into the 2026 predictions right away. I do urge people to check those links below and help support independent media in 2026. We have gogetfunding.com, Patreon, and Subscribestar. We have a Bitcoin address as well. Anything helps to keep us alive, so we truly appreciate that. And we also, and thank you to those who've already donated, by the way. You guys are amazing. Heartbeat of independent media. We're not mainstream alternative media, so it's difficult a lot of the time. Also, a big shout out to those of you who found our link for Wave Watch 2.2. You could pre-order today. This is going to be amazing because we only have good reviews on this going back through the past with the Wave Watch 1 and Wave Watch 2. 1,250 plus frequencies. Use code WAM WAM and you'll save over $100 on your order. You don't need Wi-Fi. There's no Wi-Fi included. No EMFs. There's no apps required. It's endorsed by people like Dr. Brian Ardis. You could check that out in the description of the video. It soothes your nerves, helps you sleep, it helps you detox. I highly recommend people check that out. Anyway, now that that's through, all those links are below and much more. All right, Tim, let's get into some of our predictions for 2026 because, I wrote down a whole bunch of stuff here. I think a lot of them relate to each other. In fact, I believe this is all one big puzzle piece to bring in the technocratic grid. And one of those things that I have to start with here is the digital infrastructure. So 2025, according to Augustus Carstens, was supposed to be the year that the world went digital. Now, of course, people could say we're a little late, but in 2025, we saw the release of the European, the ECB's digital euro, the CBDC. We saw mandates of digital IDs in the UK. We saw mandates of digital IDs in the United States and states like Missouri with the internet verification laws that are coming into play. They're also doing the same thing in Texas. We saw the Genius Act. We saw real IDs push forward. We saw all these major moves for the digital infrastructure. Let's not forget $500 billion towards AI development, deals with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates when it comes to, and Qatar, when it comes to massive military AI militarism, and with a big, beautiful bill, AI controlling, by the way, and this is insane, controlling nuclear arms. And then we could also get into the fact that we have social credit now in the United States, where you need to show, they're pushing this legislation forward for 2026. You have to show 5 years of social media to enter the United States, 10 years of emails, photo metadata, iris scans, and biometrics most likely will be coming with that. And we're seeing similar things in Mexico with the biometric pass. We're seeing that being pushed forward in Canada. We're seeing it pushed forward everywhere. Australia has a digital wallet. The 2025, despite people saying Augustus Carstens was he was late on his prediction, he said 2025. And he, of course, Augustus Carstens over at the Bank for International Settlements. What we're seeing is absolutely crazy. 2025 was a huge year for the digital enslavement system. Tim, what do you think about, going into 2026, that move towards CBDCs and digital IDs? You've been talking about this for many years, as I have, and I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, you've got guys like Yuval Noah Harari who has, presentations where he warns, digital dictatorship is coming, and so and you see this is his slide. This is not my slide. This is his slide. It says digital dictatorship risk ahead. Again, not my slide, his slide. And so you brought up, we didn't confer ahead of time what we're going to talk about, but you'd mentioned different things you need to get across the borders. Well,
you just got your slideshow all ready to go.
Well, so the funny thing, well, no, it's just because this was actually part of like the presentation I've already done.
Exactly.
And while you're talking, I was pulling.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so one of the things here, in years past, I was watching a prediction show from last year, and you had mentioned like we're not Nostradamus. They're literally telling us exactly what they're going to do.
Mm.
And here's Klaus Schwab's quote: "Even crossing a national border might one day involve a detailed brain scan to assess an individual's security risk. The fourth industrial revolution technologies will not stop at becoming part of the physical world around us. They will become part of us. And today's external devices, from wearable computers to virtual reality headsets, will almost certainly become implantable in our bodies and brains." And this was a slide that I made before Trump got selected, basically saying that Trump is going to be a Trojan horse, where he was there to, kind of with all of his, Bitcoin bros and all of his tech bros to make Bitcoin cool, crypto sexy and cool, and kind of lay the foundation for the next person, or have that MAGA crowd embrace it because it's their guy. And this was a slide that I had before. This is not a slide I created like yesterday. That's a slide I had, over a year ago. I was, had that slide in there after he got selected the second time. And then,
Yeah.
because I think that they're able to get things through with him that they would never be able to get through with Kamala. Because, all these, MAGA, Republican good old boys, oh, we got to stop them, Muslims and illegals. But really, it's designed for them. It's designed to stop all this. It's designed to stop the exact same crowd that's pushing for it. And so I think that's like one of the most frustrating things when it comes to what's going on, is that, so many times, people are getting side, or now you've got all these people who are now like coming over to the alternative, who've now woken up, but now like they're acting like they're the gods now, when, they've been wrong about this stuff for the past 15, 20 years.
You mean Luke
Guys
Rudowski?
like,
Okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well,
and him too. Yeah.
and that actually plays into another prediction. With the continued failure of the dollar, I think gold and silver is going to absolutely blow through the roof in 2026, much like 2025. Again, I don't want to put dates on anything. I've done videos with my friend Mark Gonzalez over at First National Bullion about this a couple times. The idea of silver is likely to hit $100 in 2026. It's possible it could hit $200. I don't know. That's a big bet, but I think with the way that people are moving out of the dollar system and the current hegemony system, with the digital system as like basically the so-called false solution built into place for when that system inevitably collapses. I'm not going to say that the dollar is going to fail in 2026. That's a crazy prediction to make. However, I do think that we're going to see, obviously, further devaluation, further inflation. This idea that the economy's never been better, what they're claiming right now, is absolutely insane. And of course, it's exactly what Biden said during his presidency. Oh, the dollar's never been better, and things have never been cheaper. And then Trump is saying the same thing, and everyone could see through it. And it's, if you go to the grocery store, and it's complete BS. But I believe that with the continued devaluation of the currency and the continued move away from banks and continued amount all these banks that are closing and these bigger banks that are buying up the smaller banks and everything, I believe that is one of the most obvious entry points into that digital system that is being created, as I've talked about so many times, that digital technocracy, the great reset. And I think that both the left and the right are perfectly encapsulating what it takes to bring us into that system. So with the fall of the current monetary system, Tim, 2026 isn't going to be any different than any other year. We're going to continue to see a devalue, but the move into digital currencies from that as a so-called solution. What do you think in 2026? Do you see this move continuing to escalate? Again, Augustus Carson saying that 2025 was going to be the year that the world went digital. If they're a little bit late, as they claim, then 2026 inevitably has to be even crazier than 2025 when it comes to that.
Yeah, and it's funny because I actually do have a slide with our friend Augustus Carson's also as well. And we don't know who's using $100 bill today, and we don't know who's using a 1,000 peso bill today. Now, this is him talking. The key difference with the CBDC is the central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulation that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And we will also have the technology to enforce that, which in non-nerd dork language means they can turn your money off. That's what they plan on doing. But they need to have some sort of crisis, which is why you've got Rahm Emanuel over here, which I don't know why they didn't show up, but you got Rahm Emanuel who said you never let a crisis go to waste. And what I mean by that is it's an opportunity to do things you think you could not do before. So what I think they're going to do is that they're going to have, you asked about 2026, is I could see them having one of these like Trump stimulus. Now, I'm kind of thinking this out in real time right now, and maybe I think Trump is such an egomaniac that he probably wants to actually have like the Trump checks out there. So maybe there might be like one this might be like the last go around, or this will be like the last time there's like a stimulus that's an actual like physical check, because he wants to have that, that big ego drive. And then from future ones, there'll be some sort of incentive where, hey, if you get it, instead of getting like $1,776 in a check, we can give you $2,000 if you sign up to take it digitally. Or there'll be some sort of like digital opt-in, or you opt into this and you get some extra special goodie. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think the last of the, and so they probably want to boost up, morale before the midterms. And so I
Mhm.
could see them wanting to, push out some sort of stimulus to, that look at how great my tariff dividend worked out.
Yeah.
And so I guess my prediction is this will be like the last time there's an actual like paper stimulus check. Uh,
Mhm.
and that, but and then the subsequent ones are all going to be digital.
That's a good prediction because again, it does seem to be going in that direction right now. Everything in the world that's happening, it all leads to basically the same point. All roads lead to Rome, as I've said so many times before on my show. The idea is that we have this puzzle that's being put together, and some people are one issue people that focus only on war or only on civil unrest or the culture issue or religion or money or pandemics or housing market or and the list goes on and on and on and on. All these things all lead to the same exact end point, and they are kind of interchangeable at the point when all they need is the right crisis in order to bring in their so-called new world order. So again, I believe gold and silver will do well. What do you think about gold and silver, Tim? I know you can't really like give advice on exactly where pricing is as an advisor, but I'd like to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that gold and silver is, critical to have in a client's portfolio, and I think it's also important to have some physical on you as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, because one of the biggest things when it comes to retirement planning, or just, and this is good, advice for, 30-year-olds and 40-year-olds and 20-year-olds as well. There's something called sequence of return risk. So the problem is, if you keep everything into crypto and then crypto inevitably goes down 80% to do a shakeout, then it goes back up. The problem is when it's down 80%, if you need to start pulling money when it's down, you're never going to get back up. So, I think it's important to have something like gold that's a lot more stable, not as volatile as something like silver. But then in like a bartering situation, I think it's, gold is more of the wealth preservation. Silver is more of the almost like the Bitcoin of the precious metal space. So for people that are younger, have a higher risk tolerance, I think, silver is probably the way. Although obviously, this is all dependent on like certain manias. And so, you never really want to buy into a mania. So when things are like absolutely pumping, that's usually probably a good time to like you know, sell, there's a quote is, buy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are buying. And so,
Yeah.
and so that's the thing. People are always like, "Oh, I wish I could have got Bitcoin at $20,000 and it crashed down to $20,000." Like, "Oh, I want nothing to do with it." "Oh, I wish I could have got Bitcoin at $1,000 and it goes down to $1,000." Like in, in the beginning of 2017. "Oh no, we don't want that." And
Yeah.
oh, and so they always want it when it's, flying high. And so ultimately people do get the price that they deserve on all this stuff. Now, in terms of price prediction, obviously this is just, we're not taking this to the bank on anything. And I think
Yeah.
a lot of this depends on, like, I think that Bitcoin by 20, I know we're kind of skipping around, by 2032 is going to be $1 million. I've been saying that for like 3 or 4 years. So whether it hits it in 2020 or 2035 or 2038, or we get it early and it happens in, 2030,
2028.
I think is immaterial.
Yeah.
It's over a 10x gain from where it's at currently. And so I think, it doesn't really matter. Just like, you and I were calling $100,000 Bitcoin when Bitcoin was like $5,000,
Oh, dude,
or
at a
you
hundred
probably even
dollars. I
before.
remember in
So
2013. I remember in 2013 at $100 being like, there's no reason considering the actual market capitalization and versus the inevitably collapsing dollar why Bitcoin won't hit $100,000 eventually because it's just basic. I mean, if something becomes as popular as Bitcoin as it has, and by the way, it's totally overtaken and they're putting up promissories and everything's super centralized. Everyone's using the online exchanges. It's all bullshit. But
yeah,
yeah,
we
absolutely.
know it's been hijacked. Then you got guys like Mark Edge, who, when it was under $1, said if it can get to $1, it can get to 1 million. So you
Yeah.
get the kid, so
Well, it's
and so
basic
him and
market
Ian
principles.
Freeman. And I guess I would, and I don't know if his website is freeiannow.com or something like that, but I would, he's another person that's been locked up in a cage. Him and Mark Edge were the first two guys ever mentioned Bitcoin on the radio, ever. So just
Mhm.
want to point out some
Oh
people
yeah,
that helped.
absolutely. They made a lot of people rich, and unfortunately, not enough people are helping support them. So,
But yeah,
absolutely.
no, I think get back to gold though. I could see it getting as high as, 5,800 bucks and then maybe then goes back down to like 4,200. And so, because a lot of these things happen in like a blow off type top. So even like Bitcoin, let's say it gets to, where I say, let's say it gets to 170. So maybe it goes from like 140 to 170 in like a day or two. And then there's a big blow off top and it goes back down to like 98. And then Peter Schiff will be out there saying, "Oh, I told you so." He literally last week on his podcast was like, "Yeah, if you were dumb enough to buy Bitcoin 5 years ago when you should have just bought gold and silver." I'm like, "Yeah, if you're dumb enough to buy it when it was like under 20,000 bucks and
Yeah,
it's 400% higher now."
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Math,
just
math is hard,
some
Peter
people,
Schiff. Math is hard. Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
remember interviewing Fest about this. I'm like, and what if we suppose a day where Bitcoin's been 10x, and this was almost, and I was with you at that Freedom Fest, but it was like I want to say Bitcoin was maybe even under the price of gold at that point, or they're very, very close at parity. And I'm like, well, what if, Bitcoin's been 10x the price of gold for like 10 years straight or 5 years straight? And he's like, price is irrelevant. So I'm like, yeah, price is irrelevant. And funny, now it actually is more than 10x the price, even with it
Mhm.
crashing. But the thing is,
Yeah.
I'm a fan of both. And I don't sell Bitcoin. I don't sell gold and silver. So you can use, your affiliates over there for doing that. But it's more like the holistic
Mhm.
advice from the 100,000 foot view of, how do you have this pie? And, people will call us grifters and this and that. I should have been out there promoting more because I could have saved a lot more people's retirements especially with this whole great reset retirement blueprint plan that I have of how to get income, and this is stuff that I haven't really shared with too many people at all, and really just been implementing it for the past month and a half. Is, there's certain Bitcoin treasury companies out there that have like over 100 years worth of dividends sitting in Bitcoin, and they're paying out like 10% dividends. And if the company were to default, they have 100 years worth of dividends sitting in Bitcoin. And so you're getting, so basically, sort of like a way to have Bitcoin fund your retirement to get the income coming in. Now, I will say there's numerous different ones. They're not all created the same. Even within the same companies, there's some that are safer, some
Yeah.
that are not. And so that's why you want to go look at the link. But it's not the grift because I don't need the money. Like I
Oh
don't need
no,
like
well,
we
Tim, I
made enough
mean,
people.
like if I was a grifter, I would have taken the $1 million offer for working at a network and reading a teleprompter, which I turned down because I want to sleep at night. At the end of the day, it's like most of the stuff that I promote, I make almost nothing off of. If I wanted to grift, I would have probably, I don't know, spent more time promoting either the mainstream or the alternative. But instead, I attack both because some people say it's
We're not talking
self-destructive.
about Israel. We're not
Yeah,
talking about
well,
all
some
the
people call it
hot buttons.
self-destructive. I call it the truth. The truth shall set people free. It's a gimmicky thing that people have been saying for a long time, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to fall into line with the Lukradowskis of the world and the
We're
Tim
not calling
Pools.
out we're not calling out Alex Jones and Enrique Poco in front of like Stu Peters and like everybody else. Yeah,
And,
real
and and again,
self-destruct.
like it's just people again they call it self-destructive. I say it's the truth, and if that's grifting, then every single person on earth is always grifting. If you go to your office job and work to be able to pay your family, you're also grifting. Then apparently, at the end of the day, I need to eat, but I make barely any money off it. I could be promoting different affiliates that make a lot more money, but instead I promote the things that I believe that people actually need. And so, speaking of that, as Tim mentioned, if you guys want to buy gold and silver, we do have that link, firstnationalbullion.com/schedule-consult/. If I can memorize it, you could find it in the description. It is there, and you could get that free consult with Mark Gonzalez as well if you want to go and jump on that, which I urge people to do. But I want to jump into the next thing here because it's easy. We could talk probably for 3 hours alone just on the economy, Tim, as we I think have a few times in the past on some of our live shows. But I want to move it along as much as possible here because there's two things I want to talk about here, technically three, that lead to one of my later predictions, which involves Iran. But before I get into Iran, I want to talk about the things that I believe will lead into that situation. One being false flag attacks, which again, every year seems to start off with false flag attacks. I mean, we're seeing this on December 31st. I wouldn't doubt it if something happens tonight, and I'm posting this on the 1st of January, and as this stuff has already happened. But false flags always seem to start off the year and end a year, and it's something that I've seen a lot. And we had the Bondi attack in Bondi Beach attack in Australia, which, by the way, the two guys that were there, the father and the son, the government knew about it months ahead of time. That's open fact, open knowledge. They are blaming Iran for it, even though the guy is Wahhabi, and Wahhabis hate Iran and hate Shias and come from Afghanistan. But and by the way, we're propped up by Israeli coups in the region for decades that propped up the more extremist Muslim factions in that area. And again, I'm saying this as someone who has knowledge of this, as someone who's lived in the Middle East and traveled a lot around countless Muslim countries, both in West Africa, in the Middle East, in East Africa, and of course, as well in Eastern Europe, where there's a lot of Muslim countries as well. And again, I believe false flags are a definitive every single year. So it's not like I'm not Nostradamus here. This is easily going to happen because it happens every year. However, I do think that we're going to see it heat up a bit because it seems that we're bringing back the Bush era of warmongering right now. The neocon factions, the Lindsey Grahams of the world, the Marco
Bush era
Rubios.
ever stop?
Well, yeah, I mean, Obama actually capitalized on that himself and increased attacks on foreign nations. The thing is that under Trump's first administration, there was, even though he did bomb countless countries and drop more drone bombs in his first administration than Obama did in his first administration, and then banned the tallying of drone bombs. I've been warning about this for a long time. At the same time, he also, there was at least some veneer of it's unpopular. Don't go to war with Syria. We're not going to do this. And it seems like everyone on the right was against going to war with Syria back in 2017, 2018. And now it's like they just totally forgot. Now they've taken over Syria. Now they've overthrown Assad, just like the CIA documents from 1982 called Bringing Arms to Bear in Syria said would happen. Both every single detail of them coming in from Lebanon, from Turkey, and from Iraq, and overthrowing the government and overthrowing Assad without a shot being fired, replacing it with a new government that's Wahhabi, which again it then would go after Alawites and Christians and Shias, and that's exactly what we're seeing right now. Exactly what the CIA reported, exactly what I reported in 2018 on a video I did on the CIA documents on Syria. All this stuff is happening. We can expect to continue to see this in the Middle East, but I do believe that Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio, neocon faction of the Trump administration is heating this stuff up to the point of no return, where we're talking about bombing countries all over the world because we need to keep ourselves safe from these big bad terrorists. The DC shooter was literally in a zero unit in the CIA in Afghanistan and shipped secretly by the CIA to the United States, and then weirdly armed, and no one knows where this, these firearms came from, and then shot 2 National Guard soldiers in DC. And then they use that for new security policies and saying, oh, we blame Iran. They always blame Iran. And again, they blamed Iran in Bondi Beach, even though the guy's Wahhabi, and that makes no sense whatsoever. Again, I believe they're going to heat up the anti-Muslim rhetoric, which I get. I don't like the culture takeover of the United States, obviously, but that's by design. They offer them welfare after destroying their country, after the CIA infiltrates them, and then they create extreme factions and then ship them into the U.S., cause everyone to freak out, causes civil unrest, and then leads to them bringing in new security measures. That's long-winded. I have more to say on this, Tim, but I want to go to you and hear your thoughts on false flags in 2026. It's like one of the most obvious predictions.
Funny thing is, I didn't write down that many things, but one of the very first things I did write down was Israeli false flag to drum up sympathy for them. And then there would also be, well, I'm calling it another Israeli false flag, but it would be against children. And this time it'd be Muslims Muslims, which are really Israelis, or people that got paid off by them, to basically sort of drum up hate. So one's to drum up sympathy for Israel, and then the other one's to drum up hatred against Muslims. And because nothing will rile up people more than something with children. And I did see that it seemed like, I don't know how true this is or not, but I saw something where there was a lot of searches coming out of Israel for like Disneyland attack and all this other stuff. So I hope that's not the case. But I feel like a rat is the most, or any sort of animal is the most dangerous when it's backed into a corner. And right now, basically Israel sort of backed themselves into a corner with all the rhetoric.
So
And
what you're
and of
saying,
course,
Tim, is that Israel's a rat.
well, they actually were founded in a rat. They were founded in a rat year. So, and actually, I think in the zodiac, next year is a horse, and the enemy of the horse is the rat. So,
Yeah.
it might be a pretty bad year for Israel.
But they definitely do
Uh,
target children. Like I mean, and if they love killing kids, if the Middle East is any indication of that, and they do it to their own people as well in Israel. So yeah, I mean that would be a very easy road for them to use in order to drum up sympathy.
yeah, it looks like with all the pedophiles always flying there after they, get in trouble somewhere else. It seems like it's not the only thing they like doing with little kids.
Yeah. Well, and
But
we'll get into
that's
Epstein later, by the way. But yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, and I think some sort of false flag. It's funny because I did not write down that many things, but that was one of the things I wrote down was. And the other funny thing is, I was going through our video from last year, and we had mentioned. Completely forgot about this, like the those like UFO drones at the end of last year. Like I forgot that was even a thing
Yeah,
until like
and don't
until
forget
like
the
early.
mist.
Like
The mist. There's mist
I'm
everywhere.
like I'm like, I completely forgot about all that. And then
Yeah.
I was also going through last year's predictions, and one of the first predictions I think I made was that and we both made this was that Israel would bomb Iran. Also predicted that Ross Ulbricht would be free before Valentine's Day. That was sort of a big one, and that ended up luckily that did happen. Predicted that Roger Ver, Bitcoin Jesus, would be pardoned. Now he wasn't pardoned; he had to pay a bunch of money, but he is not in a cage now for 109 years. So
Mhm.
take that as a win. And then I also said that the peace president would bring us to war, and that you have guys like Woodrow Wilson, and you had mentioned on the video like even George Bush was voted in to stop war. All these
Mhm.
guys who are the most anti-war rhetoric are needed to trick everybody to then go into war. It's like Woodrow
Yeah.
Wilson was voted in to get us out of world, to get us not into World War One and gets us right into World War One. And so yeah, so I mean, how many of the Trump tards last year would have thought that? I mean, that was a pretty far out prediction that Donald Trump, this peacenik guy, all of a sudden or supposed would be trying to get us into all these wars. And so luckily now there is a lot more people on the false left-right paradigm on the right
Mhm.
side that are seeing through a lot of the bullshit. And you've
Yeah,
got,
thank
guys
God.
like,
It's just that I hope they stop forgetting about it and sitting on their hands, which they do every couple
but then they
years.
get psyoped into like a Tucker Carlson. And meanwhile, like I went to now I was being recruited by two different financial companies that paid for me to go to different conferences. One was in 15, one was in 16. Tucker Carlson was the keynote speaker at both. And at both of these, he was speaking to like 55-year-old white Republican financial advisors. And he was
Mhm.
up there with Paul Begalia from Crossfire, his CNN days, talking about how great Hillary Clinton was, and she's gonna be the next president, and we should be excited for her, and she's really quite moderate. And now he's like, I mean, if there was ever a controlled opposition, like, and it's like Sam Tripoli will call it safe dangerous. So I mean it's like all these guys are saying stuff like after guys like you and me have been putting it out
Mhm.
there in the ether for like 10 years, and then now these guys are like the dangerous ones pushing all these narratives that everybody already freaking knows to begin with. And so it's just very frustrating, for that. It's basically like the people that were selling out the entire time then now get the benefit of being like the new like punk rock when they were basically the bitches the entire way up
Oh
throughout all.
yeah.
And even a guy like Fuentes, who says he has no problem with central banks and no problem with fiat money at
Yeah, I know.
all, and to keep the Federal Reserve. So, like, you got the most anti-Semitic guy out there who loves fiat money and has no problem with fiat money and central banks, which is
To
like,
be fair, I will
uh,
say I think Benjamin Netanyahu is the most anti-Semitic man out there because he's been killing millions of Semites for the last couple decades. So there's that. But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, when I see that from Fuentes, because he doesn't have any actual indication of what he actually believes, it's not consistent. And as I've always said, it doesn't matter if you're left, right, whatever. It's all paradigm. If people will say I don't like government in this and this and this, but I like it in this and this and this, then you don't know where to draw a line, which means there is no line, which means that you're inconsistent. And I think that is within the realm of collectivism. Being picking and choosing is not consistency. Tim, I was mentioning, and we're
your
talking
mic
about
is
the
kind of
war. What's
yeah.
that?
That's the thing. When you were talking, your mic was kind of down, so it was harder to
Okay,
hear.
yeah. Well, I'll fix that in post. But with everything that's going on, I think also another one, and we'll get back into Iran right away. I really want to talk about Iran, but because it applies to so many things right now, cyber attacks. I believe that we're going to see further cyber attacks so that they come in with new restrictions on the internet. As they're already doing and developing with these age verifications and digital IDs online in places like Missouri. Obviously, I'm against children watching pornography. It's a degenerate, horrible thing. Parents get in charge of your kids so that they don't do these things. But it's a Trojan horse to bring in these internet IDs where you have to show your identification, your government identification to access pornography. Eventually, that'll be in with social media and with everything. I mean, it kind of is with social media in a way already. So again, this is a Trojan horse, in my opinion, and I believe we could see major cyber attacks, false flag cyber attacks, and they'll blame it on Iran, and they'll blame it on Venezuela somehow. Even though they're also blaming the reason they're going to war with Venezuela because of Iran, and they're trading Hezbollah on the island of Margarita in Venezuela. I'm getting ahead of myself here because I do want to talk about that later as well. But I believe that we will see major false flag cyber attacks. And with severing of the underwater cables in a wartime, I believe that they could force everyone onto Starlink and make everyone use a password in order to get onto Starlink. And then the only way you'll be able to access the internet is via Starlink. The head technocrat Elon Musk, who wants to put chips in your brain attached to a Pentagon-funded mesh network, will be in charge. He's signing on. XAI is working with the Pentagon as of a few days ago, and of X Money is working with Visa cards. So again, these guys, it's a Trojan horse, and you will need to have this whole digital ID attached to your CBDC in your 15-minute city in order to access the internet eventually for national security purposes and to keep you safe and all this bullshit that they will claim. And they will blame Iran for this. And because it's so easy. The Pentagon could commit an attack on itself anytime, like any false flag, and then say, "Oh, look, it's them. They did that." Tim, the idea of these Trojan horses online. I mean, we've been seeing this across the board for years, and they've normalized us so much to it. What do you think about like the idea of a major cyber attack going forward?
Yeah, I think they need to kind of like needle like a very fine line over here because on the one hand, they want everybody to go digital, so they can't really scare people and say, hey, everything go digital and it's going to get hacked. And so, but maybe they need to find a way to say, hey, well, the way you can't get hacked is to have, a blockchain-based financial system where, and without getting like too far deep into, the nerd dork aspect of it,
Yeah.
if it is infinitely harder to try to hack or attack, something like Bitcoin than it is to do it to like your Chase bank account. And people shouldn't have Chase bank account because they're the ones that were basically behind the Federal Reserve to begin with. But
Yeah.
uh, so because of like the mining aspect of it and the security of it, I could see, they have some sort of tokenization system. I mean, and luckily though, there are solutions to this type of stuff now, like Xano, like Zano, and again, not making recommendations or anything, but they did come up with a system where you can take any sort of digital asset and tokenize it. So you could basically create like a tokenized Bitcoin, and you can do so through the Edge wallet, super easily. I'm not sure if you have an affiliate with that or not.
No,
with Paul
actually,
Clay.
well, I do have I'm occasionally sponsored by Edge, but for like $400 every year. It's nothing crazy, but I'm a big supporter. Regardless of that, I support Edge. But a good example of why is because you mentioned Xano, and I bought some Xano a couple years ago, and then I got I think about a year and a half ago, and I got donations in it for a while, and it wasn't much. I think I got a total of like $400 in it at the max. But the Canadian government seized it because I kept it in Trade Ogre, which the Canadian government seized and for my safety stole my money. So just another example. And by the way, I never use exchanges. I just was hard pressed to find a wallet at the time when I got it that held it. So I was like, okay, well, for a few months, I'll keep it in. I mean, it's not like my life savings. So I'll keep it in Trade Ogre, which was a privacy coin
I feel like
oriented exchange.
$400 is close to your life savings. So sorry about that. No.
Yeah. Well, and then the Canadian government says because there's no IDs and verification on this website, we're seizing all the money to keep the people on the website safe. How is stealing my money keeping me safe. It's just this double think is so insane, and just another example of both exchanges and banks. Stay away from them. But yeah, Edge Wallet on the application on the phone. I'm a huge fan of it. I'm a huge fan of Paul Poi,
You
who's a
can have
good friend.
Xano on there and Monero, and this is not like an advertiser for them. Like I'm not getting sponsored, but I think Paul bought me like lunch last year at Acapulco once, so I'm not
He
selling
bought
out for
me
that.
he bought me a ginger ale last year as well. So sorry, full
Okay,
disclosure.
good. Yeah, yeah, the two big riches. But anyways, they have a way now where you can make Bitcoin private, and it's super easy. Like to do it the normal way is like really difficult, and I wouldn't even advise people even trying it.
Yeah,
But yeah, you can essentially trade Bitcoin for a private version of Bitcoin that is Bitcoin that's wrapped around Xano, and they make it super easy. But that's
absolutely.
something we could talk about on like one of the calls that people will have information. So it's a way where you can basically tokenize any sort of digital asset. And so I'm not into some of these things thinking, okay, this is going to go like sky high, like millions of dollars. It's basically like this is something that's useful. It could actually be there for the freedom community
Yeah.
as a way to fight back against this technocracy. Because
Mhm.
unfortunately, a lot of what that whole spiel you just gave was like the same spiel that we were giving like 5 years ago when it was
Yeah.
like absolutely nuts. At this point, it doesn't sound very nuts at all. And I remember at Float Fest in 2021, and actually, was there a Float Fest in 2020 or 2022? I know there was
There's
only two of
2021
them,
and
but
2022.
yeah. So I remember, yeah, in 2022, I said it was the digital ID was about 5 years, and CBDCs were 5 years away. And then I also gave a rant in 2021 and like off the cuff. Uh, and so at that time, I was, saying something similar. So, that would put it at about 2026 to 2027 of a prediction making it in 2021.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
in
absolutely.
2022 on video too for that. So all this stuff sounded like absolutely batshit crazy back then, and now it's like okay, it's sort of like
Oh,
all these crazy things are passe now because
tell me about it, Tim. Dude, looking back at videos I made in 2013 and talking about all these things, and then you fast forward back then, the people that were calling me crazy are now just normalized to those crazy things, and I think I'm crazy for not going along with it. It's like, oh, that will never happen. Then it happens, and they go, oh, you're crazy for not going along with it. Like it's just so batshit crazy how people act, not how we try to bring those predictions forward and give people solutions. I do want to move on here.
talk about too. Because
Go ahead.
I saw you doing a lot of this, and so I'm like, you know what? It's kind of crazy how normalized the all the. I mean, I hate even saying anti-Semitism, but like and it kind of really started with like Kanye's video that came out, and then it seemed like there was an explosion where the algorithms allowed all this stuff, and so I think a prediction is that they are allowing all this stuff out there, so
Yeah.
then that way they can track us, and that way they then shut us off, or I feel like they're purposely allowing this stuff out there as a way to have some sort of like really big false flag against Jews that will probably be
Oh,
committed by the Jews anyway.
absolutely.
So
Because who runs a
argument,
banking system, and who runs all these major industries, and then who benefits the most from being victimized in such a way? I mean, we've seen this before. We saw World War II. Look, of course, they're creating a false alternative, and they have been doing this for a long time. I mean, the idea is that you go too far on some things and blame everyone and collectivize everyone. And as Ron Paul pointed out, it is an ugly form of collectivism. The idea is that you put people in different groups and then create alternatives. You have extreme Islam, extreme Judaism. I have a huge issue, by the way, with Judaism theologically, and I think we should be able to ask those questions. I think we should be able to ask questions about historical events from the past. I think we should be asking questions about October 7th, big time, and what Israel's doing is an absolute massacre in the Middle East and absolutely disgusting. But then those of us that have those real questions then are then pigeonholed into this group of people like Kanye West, who's like, I love Hitler and Hitler's good, and we should bring back national socialism and all these different kinds of collectivism, and also never mind, I don't hate the Jews anymore. I watched what was it again, a Jonah Hill movie, and now he's not anti-Semitic anymore. Like it's just so. What is this cartoonish, story that they're coming up with here? I think we should be very concerned about it. Of course, they need to make those alternatives, so they need to make the victimhood seem real or appropriate. They need to get the Rabbi Shmulis of the world jumping up and down, screeching. They need to get the Michael Rappaports of the world, the complete mouth breathing retards out there running around in circles, screaming about how they're so victimized. This is how they do it. And this is the exact way that they get into this, which I was wanting to say next here. War with Iran. War with Iran, my friends. We got there. War with Iran. As Tim mentioned, we predicted last year that there would be an attack on Iran. I think it's one of the major bastions of this new war that they're pushing forward here in this power shift, is war with Iran. And of course, the virtue signaling from the United States and Israel, the United States especially, even though they're basically, their wars are run by Israel to a great extent, the United States especially saying this country can't have nuclear weapons because they can't be trusted because they do these horrible things. Iran has gone to war with like two countries in 200 years, and that was all just this in 2025 in retaliation against Israel and in retaliation against the United States by hitting a unmanned area of Qatar where there's a base. I mean, it's just ridiculous. So meanwhile, the United States has actually dropped two nuclear bombs, at least theoretically, though some people say those weren't nukes. And they have bombed over 100 countries in 100 years. So who the fuck are they to say anything about peace in the Middle East and peace on Earth when they're doing all these different things? And they say, oh, well, Iran might have military bunkers and secret sites in Venezuela and in Mexico. Hey, dude, you guys have military bases in almost every country in the world. Look in the fucking mirror. You're not the peacekeepers. And by the way, Israel bombing country after country, proxy wars, arming and funding Al-Qaeda, Mujahideen, Taliban, Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS, Hamas, and then claiming that they're for peace. You're creating the problem coming in as a solution. I think in 2026, there's no doubt in my mind. I don't usually say this, but I have no doubt people can make fun of me on January 1st, 2027, a year later, if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. I have no doubt there will be bombs dropped on Iran, and this war will escalate with Iran because it's inevitable, and it connects with all the other wars right now we're witnessing in Yemen, in Syria. Right now, we have bombings between Saudi Arabia and the UAE in Yemen, where Saudi Arabia is attacking the UAE, which is insane. How is that going to turn out in 2026? I don't know. I don't think well. Pakistan, India, China, Taiwan, Somaliland, Israel and Palestine and Lebanon and Syria and the overthrowing of the government in Syria and a new government they're trying to push in Iraq as well. Again, I think Iran is one of the major focal points, and they will blame absolutely everything without any evidence on Iran. Hell, they blamed the shot at Trump in July of 2024. On July 13th, 2024, on Iran, even though, I mean, when Israel's telling you that, it's probably Israel. And then Charlie Kirk on September 10th of 2025 blamed on Iran. I mean, it just, to me, the propaganda seems blatant. What do you think, Tim? Like this propaganda move reminds me so much of like 2002, 2003 with Iraq, but this is so much more dangerous. Iran is way more powerful of a country than Iraq ever was. What do you think?
Well, I think, all wars really start off as economic wars. And if you go, and I think 2026 needs to be the year of, refinance. And so with the interest rates going from, 0.5% up to 5.5%, and now back down to, I forgot exactly what it is, like about 3.5% right now, 3.6. It's in the range. I don't know if people know this, and I do have it pulled on my screen right now, but 88% of all the commercial property loans were interest only in 2021. And so what that means is a lot of these, let's say they bought a building for $100 million. Maybe now it's worth $80 million, and their interest rate was like some teaser rate paying like 1%. And now pretty soon that teaser rate's going to jump up to 5%, but now they can't refinance because it's worth $20 million less in this hypothetical. And now their interest payments are going to be jacked up through the roof. And so they need to have some sort of scheme to lower the interest rates. And so a war is a pretty good way to do that. They're going to have a new Fed chair probably, and I forgot exactly when that's up, but I think it's sometime like around like May of next year. And so I think
May of next year, or May of 2026.
2026.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I
Just
think
because we're
it's
airing this on the 1st of 2026. But yeah. Okay.
I was
May of
thinking
this
that
year.
too. Yeah,
Yeah.
2026. So, so what I think is you're going to have the Fed chair that's going to be, complete, stooge for the president. And believe me, I was so pissed off when he picked Powell the first time. And that was like the day that I jumped off the Trump train, and I'm very ashamed to have ever been on that train to begin with. But the thing is that this goes to show that we're not just some Trump derangement syndrome, leftist libtards over here. That I did a lot. I really thought that they were trying to. I wasn't awake to anarchy in 2016. I wasn't awake to it until like early 2017. But then, to my credit, I then called him out and all the bullshit that he was up to. So I really do think that a war is a great way to create an excuse to lower interest rates, or we need to like stimulate things. And so what they need to do is they need to basically keep the official inflation rate that are all those fake numbers anyway. They need to keep that under wraps, keep that as low as possible, or even stop publishing it, or say it's 1%. And then in order to stimulate things, I could see them getting interest rates down to at the high end, maybe even like 2.5%. But I could see them maybe even have the Fed funds rate get down to like 1.25 or something to try to create a refi boom. Uh, Mainly because you have like trillions and trillions of dollars of commercial debt right now that is going to be reset, and it's going to tank everything unless they can reset this. Or
Well, and
maybe
then
they
Tim,
try
like
to.
they just put, I mean, Trump has signed trillions of dollars over to the military industrial complex in 2025. So, I mean, we're looking at about a $40 trillion national debt. We have trillions of dollars being printed for war under the peace president. By the way, Alan Dershowitz said the other day that, Epstein's friend, Alan Dershowitz said the other day that if Trump wants to go down in history as a peace president, he needs to bomb Iran and do regime change in Iran. I mean, we're at the point where war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. It's just so absolutely crazy. And it's always rather suspicious when a guy who's loyal to Israel, who's friends with the guy who literally blackmailed everyone for Israel, is telling people that Trump needs to go to war for Israel against Iran. That kind of says a lot.
Well, at least now they've, the veneer is gone. They now at least call it the Department of War, where, Bernays changed the Department of Defense because people are more likely to get behind defense than they are
Mm-hmm.
war. And then, the Trump regime comes out here and just straight up calls it Department of War. So at least I'll give them credit for, calling it what it is.
Yeah.
And so maybe now instead of the Treasury Secretary should be, the Debt Secretary. There is
Yeah.
no treasurer that they have at all.
Yeah.
And so another thing I see too is I'm starting to see this on social media of these like tax protest movements, or like even some bigger influencers who are saying, like taxes are fake and gay, and why are we paying this stuff? And until they release the Epstein list, we should just have redacted tax stuff, or not even doing it. And so I'm not saying that I'm saying this, I'm saying that I've seen this out there. Now, what I would say is, people just look up for themselves what the definition of a U.S. citizen is, if they think they're a U.S. citizen, because the actual definition is basically, it says includes only a resident of Washington, D.C., America, Samoa, Guam, Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands, like a couple other small little places like that are U.S. territories, or the state. And then you go to look at their definition of state, and it goes back to Washington, D.C. And so
Yeah.
I would take a look. I would have people like urge them to even consider whether they are a U.S. citizen, which is not the same as being a citizen of the United States of America, is different than being a U.S. basically corporate citizen, which is why when everyone's like, oh, that's unconstitutional. Well, the Constitution doesn't apply to the 14th Amendment citizen. That's
And what
why
about the law of
they
nations,
created
which
after
also
slavery.
the law of nations, which also overwrites much of the Constitution when it comes to actual courts of law. And obviously, the issue of maritime law comes into play as well. But yeah, the law of nations overwrites the entire Constitution anyway, if you believe that ink on paper actually gives anyone rights.
Yeah, and I will give, guys like Curtis Stone and Jay Noon, were helped get me down this road, a little while ago. But it is something, it is a bit deep rabbit hole, and be careful.
Yeah.
And there's lots of ways that you could
Yeah.
definitely fall off into this, depending on which, guru you're reading or trusting. But yeah, I mean, you can go look it up in the, law.cornell.edu, and go to the, I don't know what it is, like subsection 28, da, 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 and
Mm.
go see the definition for yourself, and then ask yourself, are you that? And
Yeah.
so I'm not giving anyone any advice on anything. I'm just saying, hey, this is information. And so now I'm seeing like a lot. Anyways, the prediction is that I think there is going to be like a tax protest. And I was seeing people who have like influencers with like 1 million freaking subscribers and stuff saying this type of stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's really all been coming on in the past like week and a half that I've been seeing it.
Well, I mean, it would be a really easy thing to pull out of. It starts with not having all your money in the bank. It starts with just not paying. If everyone just stopped paying, but of course, it's easier said than done because you've got
Well,
a
if you're
lot
a
of
W-2 employee, it's going to be a little bit tougher. But if you have your own business, I mean, I guess that's one thing.
yeah.
But yeah, so they kind of
Do
get you
what they
by the
do.
fact
Get
that
a foundation. Do what Hillary Clinton does. Form a foundation. The Trudeau Foundation. The Clinton
and
Foundation.
who founded her foundation? Who set up her foundation? Epstein.
There we go. Who was next door neighbors of Howard Lutnick, who is a guy who's working for Trump right now. I forget, is it labor secretary? I forget exactly which secretary it is, but he's a guy behind Trump all the time talking about how there's nothing to see in the Epstein files and that we need to stop this Democrat hoax. For years, when I started talking about Epstein in 2009, it was a conspiracy theory among the left, and the right were like, okay, it's still kind of a conspiracy theory. Then 2019 came along, and when he got arrested, it became a bigger thing. And when he allegedly died, which he probably didn't, it became another thing. And then they said, oh well, the conservatives said we need to bring down Bill Clinton and all these leftists on the Epstein list. And now Trump is in, and they're saying, oh, we need to stop this Democrat hoax, and the Democrats are pushing that to the release of the files. Which one of my predictions, I'm jumping ahead because I wanted to say something else first. But oh, by the way, Howard Lutnick, the reason I mentioned this was throwing Hillary Clinton election campaign events at his house next door to Jeffrey Epstein in New York City. But anyway, I wanted to go into Venezuela next, but I'll get into that in a second, and we'll jump around a little bit. I believe that we're going to see more distractions surrounding the Epstein files in 2026. Absolute bullshit. Israel holds the videos. They don't. I mean, again, this is an obvious Mossad operation. Epstein was caught in 2025 having bartered deals between the United States and the Israeli government for cyber weapons and nuclear arms. He was, of course, boasting to his ex-girlfriends, according to several of them, of being Mossad. Ehud Barak, the former prime minister of Israel, lived with him for months. He, of course, Virginia Giuffre, who mysteriously died in 2025 of so-called suicide, said in her posthumous book that blank prime minister, I'm sure they took it out before she died or after she died, blank prime minister raped and tortured her and beat her. And when she went to Epstein to report it, Epstein seemed afraid of the guy and just told her to do what he says. Again, he bragged about this kind of stuff. He's in these photos wearing IDF shirts in a bunch of them. He is directly, clearly getting blackmail on people and then utilizing it in order to help the Israeli government force people to or force politicians, celebrities, and businessmen to follow the same narrative, both, by the way, left and right. And those of you that think that this is political in any way, shape, or form, like, oh, well, Clinton is guilty, but Trump isn't, or Trump is guilty and Clinton isn't, you don't care about the kids. You don't care about the thousands of kids who've been raped and murdered and kidnapped because of this monstrous atrocity, this child trafficking ring that's been run by not just Epstein, by people like Peter Nygaard, but by people like, there's a million other people involved in this. This is just the tip of the iceberg. Epstein's one guy that we're distracted by. But yes, they will say more Epstein files. 1.7 million are about to be released. And what are we going to find in it? Whatever the Israeli government's going to sprinkle in there. And by the way, half the photos that just came out were already out, and the rest were, out of context photos that are out of newspapers and stuff, except for a few with Bill Clinton in a hot tub with some girls. So again, I think they will push this in 2026 further, and they will just keep trying to give something to the left so that the left can say, hey, see, we got you on the right. And then they'll give a little bit to the right and they'll say, hey, see, leftist, we got you. And it's just going to be that back and forth war that Israel, if they're holding the files, they're sprinkling that on top. And by the way, in Manhattan, when the FBI raided Epstein's house, they found countless videotapes. And what happened to those videotapes? Ooh, we lost it. I don't know what happened. It's gone. Kash Patel is a piece of shit fraud. Dan Bongino, who I met before and I've had dinner with, really nice guy, met his family. What the fuck? Seriously. And it's just another example of the hopium that people fall for, and that Trump is going to expose the establishment that he works for, just like every other president. Tim, what do you think about this Epstein stuff? I mean, it's just every week I'm seeing stuff about, oh, they've released new Epstein stuff. What is it? What is it that we're really finding out other than a few things? Well, we found out there's one thing actually a couple of weeks ago where they said that there's one paper from a victim saying that Trump raped her when she was 13 years old, and then she had the baby, and then he watched as they drowned the baby in Lake Michigan. That's pretty fucked up. But I mean, generally, what are we even finding out from these Epstein files that we didn't already know?
Yeah, and I think that is a big like, fallacy about this whole list when it's not really about a list as much
Mm-hmm.
as, this whole influence operation and blackmailing politicians by, Israel and maybe even other foreign governments. And so you get this whole, criminals like having all their blood together. So that way they're all, guilty. So nobody wants to, throw anybody under the bus because if one's guilty, they're all guilty. And
Yeah.
Howard Lutnick was the Commerce Secretary. I just looked that up, or is
Yeah.
the Commerce Secretary. So, yeah, I think a lot of it is a distraction because, a lot of the newer people waking up, it's all about the list. Whereas, the bigger issue is the fact that it's, a foreign government is creating blackmail and all of our politicians are not that they're our politicians, but they're all
Yeah.
a bunch of either blackmail or pedophiles. Or then it's also like with some of the Trump stuff, like maybe if, you're really playing 5D chess and I hate, giving him the benefit of the doubt, but, Israel could have sprinkled in stuff that's fake on there to make Trump look bad or certain letters to
Totally.
make him look bad.
Yeah.
And but who knows? But it's about the greater system of what's going on. I think the second, excuse me, meme I ever created was about Epstein. So I mean, like so, I'm an OG in the Epstein,
Files, the Epstein
exposing.
files, OG and the Epstein
No,
files.
and as a guy speaking out against that stuff, when
Yeah.
back before Alex Jones is sold out, he was on his case all the time, way back in the day, and so now it's like the cause du jour thing to come out against, whereas a lot of us in alternative media have been aware of all this guy's dealings for a very very long time,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
surprised that Cash Patel and Bongino, were pieces of shit. I mean, this time last year, I was getting recruited by some kingmaker type people to try to put me in to the administration in some capacity, and I told them no. I'm like if I really was to make a change, like I would be killed or put in
Yeah.
jail or do like because it's all about the debt-based monetary system, and so every single thing that they're doing and that they're trying to build up this and greatest economy in the history of the world. If our money is still backed by debt and we have to pay interest to borrow currency from people that never had that currency or money to begin with, we are still slaves. And so I don't give a fuck about any of these other issues. And the very first podcast I ever made in 2016 literally said that. And this is back when I was a Trump supporter. I'm like, if there's 1,000 things I want him to do, and he does 999, but he doesn't at the very least use the bully pulpit to expose the Federal Reserve. And what's he exposing them for? He's exposing them for not even being more basically, trying to think of like not getting too bad with my language over here, but basically he's doing all the same shit that he was railing against Janet Yellen doing back, in the Barack drone bomber days, that, he wants to have rates lowered. And before he's saying, oh, the stock market's one big fat ugly bubble. And now it's his bubble. And so they're using all these fake numbers, all these fake and gay numbers. And I wrote a book called How It's Rigged and How They Rig These Numbers. So it's like especially frustrating for me. And then, seeing everybody get Q-ops into QAnon.
Yeah.
It was just psyops into QAnon, and then the whole trust the plan. And then my initials are TTP. I'm like, man, so it's like
Yeah.
all these guys are just and then seeing like a lot of like millennials are all behind or were behind Tim Pool. I'm like, oh my God, even the guy with the same name as me, almost the exact same age.
Hey, we were talking about a couple years ago at your house, Tim, that we could do a new show where we're in your pool and it's Tim's pool. That's a new show.
I actually do have all the domains for that. So I've got like Tim's Pool Show. I
That's
actually
ridiculous.
have all of that
But it is frustrating
already.
because we've been talking about this for so many years, and then it comes true, and then people are still trying to grasp onto the hopium and keep it going. And I want to move. Go ahead.
He's like, did you see what Tim Pool said, or did you see? But he doesn't like Tim Pool. But I'm like, man, no, I don't. I didn't see what Tim. Like, I didn't see.
Yeah.
He's like, or you see what Luke Rudkowski said, or Tim Pool? I'm like, no, I don't.
Oh,
Or
dude, I'll give you an
Ben.
example of this. I've unsubscribed from Tim Pool and Weird Change so many times on YouTube, and I keep getting resubscribed to them. Every time I log in, I'm back subscribed to them. I'm like, stop subscribing to me or stop letting me subscribe to them. And yet I just lose my subscribers every day without posting any videos, and people come to me daily saying, "Oh, I was subscribed, and it keeps unsubscribing me from you." It's just they're blatantly doing it. They're not even trying to hide how they're pushing people in the algorithm and pushing people down as well. I mean, it's
My
ridiculous.
Instagram, like for the past week, every time I go on it, the number one recommendation for me to follow is Ben Shapiro and then like Rabbi Shmuley, and then I'm getting like ads for like Jews getting attacked everywhere, and like we need to stop
Yeah.
this. And remember, and then last year I was on a plane, and I just went to see what kind of propaganda was on like the TV that they had there because they never watched TV, and it was like three Jewish ads on like different stations. One was like for only it was almost like one of those like Sarah McLachlan
Yeah.
like SPCA videos, but it was like for only like a
The
dollar a
arms
day you
of
could
an
save like
angel.
a and you could save a former Holocaust survivor and feed a Jew in Israel. And then I turn to somewhere else and it's like another ad just like that. I turn to somewhere else and it was like almost like I
Well,
was being
Tim,
punked.
Tim, instead of for like the pro-Israel ads and give money to Israelis and the IDF, instead of in the arms of an angel, they're just playing in the background, in the arms of a demon, the synagogue of Satan. Listen, I've got a couple more things I want to throw in here quickly because I have to edit this video today, and my goodness, I still have to go out later and meet with a bunch of people. But I want to
You've
make
got all
sure
year. You've got all year to edit it.
all year. Yeah, yeah. Funny. Hey, dad jokes. All right. So we got a couple things that I want to mention here. Obviously, culture wars and all that, but I think that comes with the territory of what we've been talking about, political assassinations. So they want to promote civil war, and obviously it's manufactured. They want to be able to bring in emergency orders for mass surveillance. Mass surveillance is something we're already seeing, as we mentioned earlier. Also, I forgot to mention Trump is putting cameras with facial recognition and license plate readers over every highway in the United States to determine if people are driving suspiciously. Which I remember when I go to visit you, Tim. When I was living in Las Vegas years ago, I just like on one day I'd be like, "Hey, can I come out to Arizona?" And you'd be like, "Yeah, sure." And I just drive there. That would be considered suspicious. I also would just randomly go to San Diego or I would go to Colorado and I'd have no reason for it. I just felt like driving there that day. And that is now suspicious. Well, this mass surveillance will come out of the false flags that we're seeing, the cyber attacks we're seeing, the collapse of the currency, the push for obviously the issues with political assassination. I believe we will continue to see political assassinations. I had predicted multiple times in 2024 that the political assassination issue will ramp up because obviously that they need to create martyrs in order to bring in these policies. And with political assassinations, I also want to throw out there one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and then I'll go to you, Tim, and see what else you think might be out there that I'm missing. But Venezuela, we're seeing this war on Venezuela, war on cartels that are armed and funded by the CIA in the first place to go after fentanyl, which is created in China and shipped to Juarez, Mexico, and shipped over the border by the CIA, not the cartels. And they're claiming that Hezbollah is being trained by Iran on the island of Margarita off of Venezuela in order to go to war with the United States and use these countries as a proxy. Where in reality, if we look at history, the United States is the proxy that is taking over all these countries. Same with Colombia, same with Honduras, same with Mexico. And they've been saying I've been saying for years and years now that this will happen, but that they're seeing like IEDs on the border that are from Iran, and they're having military parades in Monterrey, Mexico, with the Chinese government and the Russian government. They've been doing that for decades, and they're claiming, well, now the cartels in Mexico and the cartels in Colombia and the cartels in Venezuela and all these places and Honduras are run by Al Qaeda, Hezbollah, and the Taliban, and Iran, and China, and Russia, whoever they need to point fingers at. And I believe that this is going to be a major, major issue in 2026. I do believe that they are working hard. They've already declared all the cartels terrorist organizations, which, according to international law, somehow legally allows them to be bombed. in Mexico, and for them to strike city centers, which I'm not happy about. I live in a city center right now in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, which is much more free and open than city centers in the United States. I should add, I can go down my street and get fresh eggs, and I could get fresh vegetables from farms like a mile away. My point is, we are. I'm in a position where I'm also going, hey, I know these people here. I know what it's like here. I know it, like the cartel isn't murdering people and beheading people every day in Mexico like the media claims. I know it's bullshit. And I'm in the middle of this, and they're saying, oh, we want to go to war with Venezuela. We want to go to war with Mexico and all these things. Pete Hegseth has been saying, I can't wait to go to war with Mexico. Marco Rubio has been pushing this idea for a while as well. And Trump is saying we are already striking Venezuela in the last few days, and is saying we're ready to do ground strikes in Mexico. Okay, Tim, what do you think about this this umbrella idea that the Middle Easterners, that, by the way, Trump said that Netanyahu is a guy who convinced him to go after Venezuela. So fucking amazing. Who would have thought? What do you think about this perpetual warfare in Latin America and the attempt to take over Latin America? I mean, we saw this with Iran Contra. We saw this with Fast and Furious. What do you think?
I know one of the predictions that I guess that didn't come true is that last year, around the 30-minute mark of our video, I'd mentioned that in the previous summer when Trump was running, he mentioned something where Iran was, trying to assassinate him, which then basically already put the narrative out there of like, hey, if something happens to me, it's these guys that did it, which is a super dumb and dangerous thing for him to do, because then it could be Israel doing something, and then Iran gets blamed. And then they've got their toady in there, JD Vance. And so maybe they realized that, and I'm just thinking out loud here because we didn't, pre-convene on this beforehand, but I think they realized that JD Vance doesn't have like a snowball shot in hell, but maybe if he's the existing president during a war, then maybe he's got a better shot. And this is something I'm postulating like right now, like on the spot. Didn't haven't really thought of that before. Mm-hmm. But I can see something like that happening. And then it also brings back to what I said earlier about the whole need to have the interest rates lowered. And so war is sort of a good excuse to lower those interest rates, because then the real end goal is to have that big refinance. So I think that 2026, and most people don't see this coming, but I think it's going to be a big refinance year, and they're going to, towards the end of the year. And there's guys like, Raul Paul, or however to pronounce his name, Raul
Paul.
Raul Paul, I have a hard time saying that for whatever reason. But anyways, he talked about how at the end of the year is going to be sort of, a lot of the assets will be going up. And then towards the end of the year, the refinance boom will kind of end. And then, then you might see some pullbacks in some of these assets. But again, I'm not really a trader as much as more of a long-term investor and stacking certain things and you making the best out of certain situations. So I could see them using these wars as a pretext to try to get their guy in, JD Vance, and then also lower the interest rates, then create that refinance boom.
Well, and also like bringing in emergency orders. It's so easy in a wartime. The United Nations mapped it out a few years ago now, saying that they've got the right over most countries in the world to force emergency orders in a time of war, pandemic, economic crisis, or climate disaster. I should probably throw that in as a prediction that without a doubt, there's going to be more weather modification issues in the United States and Canada and in Europe and the UK, that they'll say we need to have stricter security guidelines on and ration food and all that kind of stuff. And also there's shortages. There's so many things I want to get into, Tim, that we can't. I mean, it's like there's a 73-year shortage on cattle head right now. And 73 years ago, in 1952, as I'm speaking, 1953, as you're watching, there's less than like 1 billion people on Earth. And now there's like 8 to 11 billion. They're not really sure. There's a large number. And it's like, okay, so that's massively, an issue of the shortened supply chain, if I could spit this out, when it comes to food. And obviously the issue with the grid and all that, they will use anything they can in order to bring these emergency policies in. And of course, with the United Nations Pact for the Future, which 193 countries signed on to in September of 2024, they said that they are able to shut down your bank account if you say negative things about the government under emergency orders. They say that they can shut you down if you say negative things about the narrative under emergency orders. They say they could force food rations on you and force you into digital IDs with social credit under emergency orders. A war, whether it be civil or world, could be the entry point into that. And if we see war in Latin America, we will see war internationally, and it will be very, very dangerous going forward as far as the introduction of a lot of these emergency orders. Obviously, there's so many things I want to mention. Basel III was implemented at 63 central banks in 2024, October 2024. And it's like, okay, bail-in regimes, my friends, at any moment could happen in the face of a crisis. The FDIC is still bankrupt. There's a million things I want to still talk about, but we don't have time for it today. But Tim, do you have any more predictions you want to throw out there going forward?
No, I think that that's pretty well encapsulates a lot of what I was thinking. Because a lot of really the plans, because we've made so many outlandish predictions that have come true at this point. I'm really, I don't really pay attention to like the day-to-day news. A lot of it is, what Wayne Gretzky would say, skate to where the puck is going. And so that's what I'm trying to do with my existing client base is
Yeah.
we've already skated to where the puck is going. And so I don't really care necessarily what things do on like a year-to-date basis. It's much more about like where it's going in the
Yeah.
future and getting people prepared and getting ahead of things. And so that's what we're up to over here. And it's good being back on. I think the only podcast I've done all year have been with you a couple times in Puerto Vallarta, last year's prediction show. So maybe I'll get on the giddy up and do some more
Yeah.
in this. But
Well, and
yeah,
you got a
no,
lot
I
of
look
cool
forward.
news coming up for yourself going into the future that we won't mention right now. But obviously, I want to be able to get you on and talk a bit about what your plans are, because you're working out a lot of cool ways to make sure that people are financially free. So we'll definitely want to be getting into that more in 2026.
Yeah, and I'll see you at Anarchapulco as well. And so, if and maybe let us know in the comments if you guys are going to be there. And, obviously, if you watch us or see me over the years, if you're a newer viewer to Josh, we've probably done like 400 or 500 videos together in the
Mm-hmm.
past. So I'm not some spring chicken coming on here out of nowhere. Been doing this for a while, but yeah, no, thanks for having me on. And yeah, I can't wait to see you down there in Puerto Vallarta for Anarchapulco. It'll be the first one ever there, so definitely interesting to see how everything plays out. But it's so great having a 2 hour and 40 minute direct flight to get there and
Yeah.
not having to screw because I do really like Acapulco and I was finally getting used to everything, but it was just such a pain spending sometimes like 20 hours trying to get there, like an entire day. And whereas now it's just like a quick flight down there. So
Yeah,
looking
I'm
forward to
super
that.
excited about it, Tim, and it'll be good to see you here. And you know, since I got banned from the United States, I don't get to see you as often. So, for obvious reasons. But with Puerto Vallarta, with Anarchapulco, it's going to be great because look, I know they should have changed the name, but they won't. I've talked to them; they're not going to do it. But I kind of get it. The brand name is kind of sticking, and I understand that. But Puerto Vallarta, I think I will honestly say I think Acapulco is more beautiful than Puerto Vallarta. However, I believe Puerto Vallarta is way more convenient and easy to get to, and more accommodating to a lot of people, and the weather's better by far. I mean, in February, it's going to be like in Fahrenheit, we're going to be seeing like 65 to 85. And in Acapulco, it's usually like 110 fucking like 99% humidity. And it's totally different in Puerto Vallarta at that time of year. And also it's just it's going to be more accommodating for people who want to travel to Puerto Vallarta. Going to Acapulco is a bitch. Even I live in Mexico, I live in Puerto Vallarta, and having to go to Acapulco for me is a problem because it's like 7 hours on one flight, 7 hour layover in Mexico City, and then on top of that, I have to change airlines and check out and then check back in, find another flight that goes straight to Acapulco, and then that finally I get there and it's an issue with most places in the United States, Canada, and even Australia has direct flights to Puerto Vallarta. Even France and England have some, not many, direct flights
Fun in
Puerto Vallarta.
Canada.
What's that?
A lot of
Oh yeah,
Canadians.
that's the one downside. I say that as a Canadian. I say it in jest, but it's going to be amazing and culinary capital of Mexico as well. Lots of options, and it's going to be at the convention center in Puerto Vallarta, which I push for really hard because there's not really a lot of great event spaces in Puerto Vallarta, despite being such a major attraction worldwide. And so I think people are going to have a great time. I urge people to come a little bit early and leave a little bit late, so you can enjoy things outside, because Anarchapulco is taking place close to the airport. Some of the places you want to see are about 30 minutes south of Puerto Vallarta, which I definitely urge people to do. And if you're a hardcore voluntariist anarchist, I urge people to spend a bit of time and go to Yalapa, which is an autonomous town that isn't technically part of Mexico, that is like a 35-minute boat ride from Puerto Vallarta. And it's not an island, it's on the land, but it has no cars on it. It's like a maze of streets that are cobblestone, and it's absolutely beautiful, and super freewheeling, and it's an indigenous territory, so yeah, it's not technically part of the Mexican government. Really cool place that said no to lockdowns and all that
Or
kind of
like a
stuff as well.
Sayulita, which is north of there. So I think it kind of depends if someone's looking more
Party
like
city.
party vibe, surfer town, Sayulita. And I don't drink anymore at all, but
Yeah.
that would be Sayulita. And if they want relaxed, chill, nobody around besides Anderson Cooper, then they can go to go to Yulapa.
That is true. That is true. They're super weird. A friend of mine named Dan, who I've known for many years in PV, who's one of the grumpiest people I know, but he's a good guy. He was super against lockdowns and everything, like I was, but he brings it to another level. Like he went into kitchens in Puerto Vallarta, and if someone was wearing a mask in a kitchen cooking food, he just starts screaming at the chef at this restaurant we just got into, and I'd be like, "Oh man, brutal." But he was in Yalapa. I interviewed him about 2 years ago on this. He was in Yalapa, and he was sitting on a rock at a random space, not even where the boats usually get off. And Anderson Cooper randomly showed up in a boat, and he confronted him and called him a murderer, and it was good times. But
In a
yeah,
town of like 300 people, only accessible by boat or some
yeah.
like crazy jungle ride. Yeah. It was like
Apparently
a
they were
18.
doing some story on a family there, but I've never seen the story. I would assume since a child got out of the boat, other sketchy stuff was coming out there. I'm
Well, we
not.
went there and there's like a Showtime boxing in the jungle. Like it's so
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah, that was really well. It's super calming and relaxing, and I'm like, Tim, you got to see this place. And we go there, and we're on the beach, and like everyone's talking about some boxing event. I'm like, what in Yalapa? And then
Like the
we ended up
busiest
getting
day in the
tickets.
history of Ilapa.
Oh man, I got wasted that night because it was like a televised like ESPN like boxing match on the beach next to the jungle in Yalapa in the middle of nowhere, again in like a town of like 300 people. And we're just sitting there, and with the table they give you a whole bottle of like whiskey or something, and I don't like whiskey. And they gave me this whole bottle, and we're just sitting there watching people get beaten up. Craziest. Anyway, I'm rambling on, but crazy situations always happen in Yalapa. Walking along a random path towards a waterfall, and you'll just see some random woman with a little wooden box podium setup who's selling ricea, which is like hardcore, like it's illegal in the US, hardcore mezcal or tequila. And then it's like Mexican, it's like Mexican, what do you call that? What do you call the stuff that you make that's illegal in the United States?
Moonshine.
Moonshine. That's it. That's right. And then she'll also just be selling mushroom chocolates that she made in her at home. Like, hey, you want some magical mushroom chocolates? I'm like walking down a path in some enchanted forest towards a waterfall. You want some mushrooms? Like, maybe.
Remember the
It's
time
a really cool
we
place.
were walking like in like the jungle and I found like an amphitheater where they were selling tequila. And I don't even like tequila. This is back when I was drinking, but uh it was like the best tasting tequila I've ever had
That
in my
that was
life. And
in
this
that was in Nogalito. That was in Nogalito. This is a small town in the jungle with parrots flying around. That's really close to Puerto Vallarta. It's like a 20 cent, not even it's like a 10 cent bus ride to go there from Puerto Vallarta, and it's like a small town that's inland. And yeah, we're just walking around the jungle. I'd been there a few times. Carlos Santana has a house there. And then we suddenly come upon, yeah, this like tequila tasting thing in the middle of the jungle. And they were like closed, and they're like, I don't know, we're
we're the
closed.
only people there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're in the middle of the jungle. How many customers do you have? Yeah, it
this has
was.
got to be some drug. This has got to be some sort of front company. But it was like
Yeah,
the best tasting.
yeah, yeah. Well, But again, it's an amazing place. I'm rambling on about Puerto Vallarta here, but I really hope people come out and see it. Again, anarchapulco.com. Use code WAM, WAM, and you'll save 10% on your tickets. If anyone's even still watching right now, I urge you to go into the comments and write the word cookies, because no one will know what's going on with that, but I'll know that you guys watched this far. So
I'd
I'll be
also say
looking for those comments.
in my opinion, probably the safest place in
Yeah.
all of Mexico as
Well,
well.
Tim, you know what I
Like
get
not
up
that
to, man. You know what I get up to, wandering around at night all the time. I did that in Arizona, and I'm surprised I got away with that. But and I've done that in Acapulco. But for almost 6 years now that I've been living in PV, I go out at night all the time, walking around. I'm a night owl. It's not that I go out and drink all the time and I'm partying. I actually just a lot of the time I just enjoy hanging out with people, because I have friends with a lot of waiters and stuff like that get off work late, and that's when we hang out. And I could walk around these streets at any time of the night, and in all the years I've been here, not one thing has ever happened. It's just so cool. It's so safe. It's not like, don't be one of those people that just stays on the resort and gets really scared, gets into an approved taxi that costs you 5 times more than a normal one to go to the event every day. Go and explore and understand the place a bit. But yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a good time. And I urge people to definitely check that link and check all the other links in the description. And this sale on heavensharvest.com is going to be ending right away. I doubt anyone's even watching at this point, but it's 25% off on the organic and non-GMO storable foods right now, and heirloom seeds, and of course freeze-dried food and everything. Heavensharvest.com, code WAM, WAM, 25% off. Can't find that absolutely anywhere. Amazing deal. So that's not going to last forever. It's usually 5% off. They're making like no money off this, but they want to get it out to you guys. So anyway, check that out below. And Tim,
I've got some of your apricot seeds are in here too. So
yeah, I can't because we're posting this on YouTube, I can't talk about it, but go to our other if you're watching on YouTube, go to Rumble and BitChute and look in the description. You'll see the apricot seeds and figure it out yourself. I can't say any more on that, or else this video
you
will
still
be
do
taken down.
wild pastures. I still get wild pastures delivered because you talk about the meat shortages.
Yeah,
I don't know if you
absolutely. I still have
doing
Wild
that.
Pastures linked below. No one really uses it. I haven't seen anyone use it in 5 or 6 months. But I do have that in the description as well.
My thing is
For
like while you can still get like there's clearly a push to like make meat more expensive or to at least shut it down. So I feel like, while you can get it relatively easily, like just take
yeah.
advantage of that.
Oh,
So and
absolutely.
especially if you're one of my clients, you made so much money the past few years that, it doesn't like it's all just gravy at this point. So but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm still getting it, still doing the apricot seeds and everything. And
Absolutely. And we have vni.life/wham, WAM, or for a bunch of super supplements, including Protovite, which absolutely cleanses your blood, restores negative charge. Red blood cells are free and flowing. There's before and after videos that we've shown multiple times where it shows no like a bunch of circulatory issues 5 minutes after taking Protovite. White blood cells are 4 times their size. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And wham code WAM15, WAM15 will save you 15% off on that. You can subscribe and save more over time. And of course, we have as I mentioned earlier, firstnationalbullion.com/schedule-consult/ for Mark Gonzalez, who will help you get out of that digital system and into gold and silver, that you could hold in your hands, put it in a vault, or put it in an IRA outside of the traditional IRA system. It's up to you guys. You guys decide. Just let them know that you found them at WAM or World Alternative Media. You'll get that free consultation and that free economic outlook book. As always, I urge people, once again, thelibertyadvisor.com to go and find Tim, and he's lowering that limit to $250,000 for World Alternative Media viewers. So I urge people to go and check that out, get that consultation with Tim today. And I'm excited for the future. I'm worried for the future, but I think that if we take the right steps to solve our issues personally and not wait for government to fix it, then we will be sitting pretty going forward. But it all comes down to if we heed the warnings and actually take those steps to be independent, free individuals. So, Tim, good to see you as always, and let everyone know again what you're up to coming up right away before we go.
yeah, they can catch me at Anarchapulco, or they can, if you want to learn more about my Great Reset Retirement Blueprint, that really is great from anyone just starting off to someone that's obviously it's more ideal for someone that's either in retirement or about to retire. I think I've got the absolute cat's meow way to do this. And really, it's just been adapting this since even before the pandemic. And
Mhm.
I don't know too many people that could have presentations before the pandemic that then were the actual way to go. So yeah, I think most people have not really thought all this through along like every single sort of way that can sort of derail them. And I think I've got the absolute way to do that for someone at least that's not even in our community or not, but for certainly the people that have all the proclivities that we have and want to be, have things that are basically consistent with our philosophy and not, enriching a bunch of, pharmaceutical giants or other companies that are trying to enslave you. I
Yeah.
think I've got the absolute way to do that. And yeah, so people can go visit me. I don't need the business because we went up like probably like about hundreds of percent the past few years. So things have been going pretty good. But yeah, I do want to help out other people because I know it's a whole lot of information to take on at once if you're just
Yeah.
getting new to this, or it can certainly get overwhelming. And people get overwhelmed, they stick their head in the sand like an ostrich, and it's they end up doing nothing. So I
Right.
don't want to see that happen. And yeah, so libertyadvisor.com, and thanks for having me. And if you're going to be at Anarchapulco, let us know. And yeah, especially if we know you personally. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you down there.
Absolutely. I appreciate everyone watching. And if you've watched this far, make sure to hit that like button, share on social media, hit the notification bell, and hit subscribe if you have not yet already. Find us on BitChute and Rumble specifically. If you haven't subscribed there yet, World Alternative Media there, because there's really no realistic point to be sticking around on YouTube. We lose subscribers every day. It's completely pointless. They don't show our videos to anyone, and they probably won't show it to you despite pressing to be notified. So if we want to be secure in the sense that we could reach you, I urge you to check us out again, Rumble and BitChute World Alternative Media. And again, thank you for watching, everyone. Let's buckle up for 2026. It's going to be a crazy year, but let's try to make the most of it and think positively, at least to some degree. And it starts with us actually taking action and solving some of those problems ourselves where we stand. So again, thank you for watching. Thanks for joining us, Tim. And until next time, this is Josh Sigurdson and Tim Picciott signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.